Have you ever wondered what an average day looks like for a prolific, famous author? I know I have. I mean, it is the dream, right? A lot of us don't have the ability to do that because we have to work a full-time job. So we end up fitting in writing wherever we can in the morning, in the evening, during lunch break. Tomorrow, I have a full day off. So we are going to imitate one of these famous authors and we're going to try their writing routine and see what it's like. I actually have a lot of respect for full-time authors because I feel like whenever on a weekday I want to get writing done, I find a million ways to procrastinate. So the fact that some of these writers can find a really solid writing routine that gets them writing a book a year, even more in some cases, I think is really impressive. So I'm deep into the revisions of a mountaineering thriller novel with a little bit of a horror element to it, and I figured that the writing routine that we should try to emulate should be one of the best thriller writers in the world, and that is Stephen King. He is a horror writer, but a lot of what he writes is also, I think, very much in line with what makes a thriller so great. I haven't read his whole backlist because he has, I think, over 70 books written at this point, but I've read a fair few. I've read Carrie, Misery, It, Under the Dome, and probably a few others. We're going to see if using his writing routine can make my writing just as good. I pulled most of what we're going to do for this writing routine from the internet, from interviews that he's done, and it seems like he really does have a very straightforward, every single day doing the exact same thing. So it's very structured. So it's going to be really helpful for me because I thrive on structure. I thrive on being told what to do. And so we're going to let that happen. And I mean, unfortunately, it starts pretty early. So I'm going to see you tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m. for breakfast.
The best description of writing a novel that I ever heard is actually in Thomas Williams's book, Hair of Harold Rue, which says that writing a novel is like building a little campfire on an empty, dark plain. And one by one, these characters come out of the dark, and each one has a little pile of wood, and they put it on the fire. And if you're very lucky, before the fire goes out, it's this big bonfire, and all the characters stand around it and warm themselves.
So why are we up this early? Well, according to this Rolling Stones interview, Stephen King has said that his typical writing day starts with, I wake up, I eat breakfast, I walk about 3.5 miles. I come back, I go out to my little office where I've got a manuscript, and the last page that I was happy with is on top. I read that and it's like getting on a taxiway. I'm able to go through and revise it and put myself, click, back into that world, whatever it is. So that's what we're doing. We're waking up, we're eating breakfast, and then we're gonna go out for a walk. He said 3.5 miles, but the loop around my house, because there's a trail, is 3 miles, so we're gonna call that good enough. Why do we have to wake up at 6:30 precisely? He doesn't say when he wakes up, but he goes on this 3.5 mile walk before writing. And in Lisa Rogak's Haunted Heart, The Life and Times of Stephen King, she's reported him to have said, there's a certain time I sit down to write, from 8 to 8:30, somewhere within that half hour every morning. So that means that we have to get this walk in with enough time to start writing around 8 to 8:30. The walk will take, I think, like 45 minutes is usually how long it takes me, which is why we then backtrack to waking up at 6:30. So I'm gonna eat my food and then we're gonna get walking.
There was a time when I felt like nobody will ever take me seriously as a writer's writer, just as somebody who makes money. And it did make me angry because it seemed to me that there was an underlying assumption about popular fiction, that if everybody reads it, it can't be very good. I've never felt that way. I've felt that people can read and enjoy and on many different levels.
But you got over worrying about that at some point, clearly.
I got old. And I think that probably a lot of the critics who didn't like my stuff are now dead. So, them.
We have arrived home and it is time to finally get to writing. Continuing on the excerpt from Haunted Heart, The Life and Times of Stephen King, I have a glass of water or a cup of tea. I have my vitamin pill and my music, sit in the same seat, and the papers are all arranged in the same places. The cumulative purpose of doing these things the same way every day seems to be a way of saying to the mind, you're going to be dreaming soon. So I'm going to make myself a cup of tea, and then I'm going to sit down just over here, which is my usual writing spot, and we're going to get to writing. From what he said in his Rolling Stones interview, it looks like he reads the last page he wrote before diving into the editing. So we're going to do that.
The way that I work, I try to get out there and I try to get 6 pages a day. And I work, when I'm working, I work every day, 3-4 hours, and I try to get those 6 pages and I try to get them fairly clean.
I'm not entirely sure what 6 pages means, because for me, like when I'm writing in my Word document, I have full pages, single spaced, size 12 font. So I'm assuming he means like 12 pages of like a novel, which I'm assuming is somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 words for 6 pages. So I think we're gonna aim something like that. I'm gonna be starting a new chapter this morning, so it might end up being that I just wanna write the full chapter. I am on a revision, but this chapter really is a lot of rewriting. I might try and pull some stuff from the first draft, but I don't know, we'll see. And yeah, I'll make myself a cup of tea and let's get to work, finally.
All I know is that I sit down and I turn on the machine, and there's always that first 10 minutes that's like smelling a dead fish or walking into a monkey house. And then something will click a little tiny bit, and that leads to something else. And it's like choo, 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 until it's going faster and faster. And then you hit this kind of escape velocity. You're gone. The world, the normal, mundane, sort of stupid world where you got to do the breakfast dishes and you got to make the beds, you know, and you got to worry about getting the kid to the dentist. All that's gone. People will say, where do you get your ideas? I don't know where I get them, you know, and if I did, man, would I tell you? I mean, Jesus, they've been good to me.
So I've just finished rereading the last few pages, and I'm ready to jump right into the writing, but I just thought it was kind of funny because I don't actually reread anything when I start writing typically. I just kind of go for the next section. I've never even thought really to go back and read before I started unless I wanted to actively edit that chunk of writing. So, I don't know, it was kind of interesting. I think it might have helped a little bit, but even the walking, like I enjoyed the walk, but I don't know if it necessarily is going to make my writing any better or get me in the zone. I was just listening to music, bopping along, not really thinking about too much, but so far I'm enjoying my morning, and this is the moment of truth. Just trying to sit here. I think he writes typically for like 4 hours, so let's see if we make it till noon.
Not only do I want to feel the suspense of the story, I want to relish the good parts.
You want to enjoy the good parts.
Every now and then you'll say to yourself, I wrote a really good line there. Oh boy, that's really cool. I can't explain it. That's the beautiful thing about what I do. It's just like being belted by an idea.
We are 2 hours in, and I'm taking a quick break to make another cup of tea. So far, it's going pretty good. I'm at just over 1,100 words. And I'm starting to lose some focus and lose some momentum because I don't typically write for more than, a 2-hour chunk of time. I usually prefer to do like multiple writing sessions in a day. So it might be a little bit of a push to get to 4 hours today, or at least just write until noon, which is, I think, his typical schedule. So hopefully another cup of tea will help fuel me to the end. I think this is where I'm going to call it for writing today. So he writes till just about noon, or when he hits that 6 pages, and I hit 1,934 words, which I think is basically like 6 pages. I finished the chapter that I was on, chapter 28. It is now done, because from what I've seen, those 6 pages of his are usually pretty like clean. So I don't know if it's quite up to his standard, what I did today, but I'm tired. I'm happy with what I've done. I mean, this was a pretty basic routine. Eat breakfast, go for a walk, write. But I don't know that it really fits me that well because I think that going for the walk and it taking like an hour really doesn't set me up that well because I really like to start writing like first thing, you know, and going for this walk kind of delays me a bit. And then it's just hard for me to kind of go back into my brain and back into the world that I've created. And especially like 4 hours is a little long for me. I'm sure if I like got used to it and did it more often, maybe it would be easier. But because I'm so used to these like 1 or 2 hour focus sessions, I think it was a little harder. And I think too, I'll be honest, I've been doing a lot of revising, and this is the first time that I've been kind of first drafting for a while. Like 95% of what I wrote today was like fresh new words. I'm also taking that into account, but I'm really happy that I did this. I probably got more work done trying to follow Stephen King's writing routine than if I didn't have a structure, because a lot of times when I have like a day like this where my only real goal is to write, I'll usually end up sleeping in and then, you know, reading or going on the internet or whatever and wasting a bunch of time and then procrastinating even more. So getting it done now, I still have half the day to go do some fun activities, which I really, really appreciate. But I have to say, the fact that he writes every single day while working on a novel without fail, writing these 6 pages is really impressive. Because already now I'm like, great, I'm done, you know, I've accomplished this thing. But for him, it's like, it's not such a big accomplishment because he's doing it every single day. Like, this is the norm. I also couldn't mimic his writing routine exactly because he tends to go into a closed room where he has no distractions. But since I live in like a 1-room, 1-loft cabin, it's a little harder to cut everything out around me. Yeah, I did the routine as best I could, had a good time, and now I'm gonna get on with the rest of my day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.